Hello everyone, today we're here to show you our mast line. We have three different lines. We have the 100%, the 80% and the 60%. We're building our mast in Italy. Even our low percentage mast, 60%, is built in Italy. We're not having like lower percentage mast built elsewhere, because we want to make sure that the quality of our mast is at the top level in terms of reflex, curves, and all the different details which makes a difference in a mast to be a good mast and to give the maximum performance no matter what the percentage of the carbon is. So the 100% mast is what our top riders are using, and mainly our clients which want the top performance. And often we are talking about the different percentage of mast just because of the weight. The weight is not the main thing, because if you have a good mast produced in 80% and 60%, you will realize that actually the difference between a 60% and 80% and 100% is very small. It's more about the reflex, it's more about the curve. So, talking about the curve, if you buy a Point-7 sail, it's important that you have the right mast, a Point-7 mast, because then you're sure that the development done on the sail using this mast actually is connected at 100% to the development done on the sail. So it's tailor-made, the sail is tailor-made on the mast. Therefore, the curve is very important. It's not so much about the weight, or if it's 100%, it's important that the curves are right. So if you take a 460 100% or a 60% 460, you will realize that when you rig the sails will look exactly the same. So what is the main difference? The main difference is the reflex. So on the 100% compared to a 60%, of course, you have more carbon. More carbon means that the reflex is faster, meaning that when you're sailing, the mast is actually bending with the wind, with the waves, but it's coming back to its original position in a much faster way. So faster way back means that it's actually pumping faster, and so the reflex and the reactivity of the sail is much faster, and therefore the rig feels lighter, it feels more controllable, because it's always more or less in its original position. When you have a 60% mast, then the reflex is a bit slower, so the time of the mast to come back to its original position is longer, and therefore this gives a kind of softer feeling, so it's less reactive. In some cases, a strong wind can be also more comfortable, because having something less reactive is also giving something comfortable, but at the same time the acceleration would be less, and the weight of the rig will feel a little bit heavier because of this lower reflex. So this is the main things about the difference between a 100% mast to a 60, where the 80% is a compromise mast, where it's not as fast as a reflex as 100%, but it's not as low as a 60%. And so this is like the compromise solution, the 80%. How to choose between 100, 80 and 60? First of all, of course, is budget. So according to your budget, you can decide whether you want the top performance of your mast, or if you want to go to a 60% to save a little bit of money. In our case, the 60% is not the cheapest 60% on the market, but because we are really having the same carbon quality as 100%, even if it's less carbon, but it's still the same quality, and the resins are the same, and the curves are guaranteed to be the same as the 100%. So when you're buying 60%, you're actually getting a really good mast. Now, if you take the 80%, it's perhaps the best choice for most of the people, because you have a really good reflex, but at the same time you have a little bit more glass, which is protecting the mast from catapults, from leaving the sail maybe longer time in the sun, or from dropping it on the floor. It has a protection layer of glass, and therefore it's stronger than 100%. The 100% is having, of course, a lot of carbon, less glass, and you have to treat it really well. You have to think that these are tools for sports, they're not toys. So when you're having a type of mast like this with 100% mast, it's designed to win competition at the highest level of racing and of wave sailing. So they have to be treated carefully, in the sense that you don't have to throw them around or having, you have to treat them as a proper working tool, like our riders would say. So the better you treat your gear, the longer it will last. And So the 100% is something that gives you that extra performance, but you have to take care of it in the sense that just don't leave it rigged the whole time in the sun, don't throw it on the ground, as I said before, and all this stuff. The 80% therefore allows you to have a bit less stress on taking care of it because it's stronger, it's protected, as I said. And the 60% of course is a mast that will last forever. You don't have to worry about it, It will give a little bit less reflex on the rig, but it has a very long durability due to the fact that it has a lot of glass around it to protect the carbon. If we have to go a little bit into the curves discussion, a lot of you guys are asking if the mast is constant curve, if the mast is flex top. There can be a lot of different flex top curves and a lot of different constant curve curves. There can be a constant curve which is softer, constant curve which is stiffer. It can be like a constant curve which has a stiffer base and a stiffer top, and it's still called constant curve as a softer base and a softer top. So it's just the percentage difference between the top and the bottom which says if it's a flex top or a constant curve. And there's a huge variety of possibilities. In our mast, we are actually printing our curves because then the client who decides to have our sails, our mast, he actually knows what he's buying. And we don't just say constant curve or flex top. We are actually putting on the mast the sizes. So when you buy any mast, you will have the C for carbon, 100%, the size 400, but also these three numbers. Practically, you have the first number, which is actually the percentage of the curve of the base. So it's 63.5 in this case. The MCS is the second number, the central number in the three numbers, and that's 19 of MCS. And the lowest number is the curve of the top of the mast, which is 73.5. So here you can actually see the curve of the mast. So you don't have to ask if it's constant, it's flex top, it's all written here. And these curves are actually designed to fit our sails. So when you have this mast, you know that whatever sail you're going to buy, you're going to have the perfect match. I'll explain you a little bit the difference between a constant curve mast and a flex top mast. This should actually interest you because you just get the right mast for the right sail. But just to give you more information, I prepared this table here to show you the difference between a constant curve mast and a flex top mast. So let's take a 460 to start from, and that's going to be our example for today. 460 constant curve normally has a base value of 63% and a top value of 75. Let's forget about the MCS, which is this column here in the center. Let's focus on the base and on the top numbers. So 63 is the base and 75 is the top. This is a constant curve mast because when you take 75 and take out 63 from it, you will have 12 points of difference. 12 points of difference is the result of having a constant curve mast. If the value of 12 would be 13 or higher, the mast would be then flex top. So, going to a flex top example, we keep the base 63 just as our constant curve mast. So you see the flex top base is actually the same as the constant curve base. Then, if you go to the top, 75 was our value, and in the flex top mast it's 76 or could be even higher. So, a flex top mast means that at this point when you take 76 and you take out 63, you will have a result of 13, not 12 anymore. So it's not 12, 12 is a constant curve result, but if you go higher than 12, so 13 in this case, it's a flex top mast. It could be 77, it could be 78, so even more flex top. So when you talk about a flex top mast, you actually could mean anything, because it could be very flex top or little less flex top. Now going even more into details, what happens if actually we have a base which has a lower value. So if the base goes to a lower value, so let's say 62 instead of 63, it means that the base is getting stiffer. So if we take again the top, we take it from the constant curve. So constant curve top is 75, we take a 75 again here, so we're using the same top curve as a constant curve mast, but we went stiffer on the base. So again, we have 13 points of difference. When you take out 62 from 75, you have 13 points. So it's not a constant curve, but it's a flex top. But when you look at it, the top has remained the same, but the base has gone stiffer. So would this be also a flex top, or would you call it a hard base? So as you see, there is a variety of measurements and interpretation that you can use. So to say it's a flex top, it's a constant curve, it's just a very small thing. There's a lot more to it, and this is why we normally advise to have the right mast for the right sail. And if you see in all our examples, the MCS did not change, it's 25. And 25 can be either flex top mast, a hard base mast, a constant curve mast, it can be anything. So now I will show you a little bit about how the numbers change, what they become. Okay, we go a little bit more in detail to try to make you understand what happens when you have stiffer base or softer base, a softer top or a stiffer top. What do I mean by it? Okay, let's start. Okay, it looks like a mess, but it's going to be very clear. Let's take a 460 mast. You have a 63 base, a 25 of IMCS, and 75 top. So as said before, if you take from 75 out the 63, it's 12 points. So here we have a perfect constant curve mast because of the 12 points, because you're getting 12 points. So if this is the 63 is the value of the base. If I go lower in the value, so from 63 I go to 62, so I go down, the mast becomes stiffer, the base is becoming stiffer. If I go higher in value, the base is becoming softer. So if I go to 64, 65, the base is softer. If I go from 63 down to 62, 61, the base will be stiffer. Going to the top, forget about the MCS for a while, let's go to the top, it's the same. If you go from 75, you go up to 76, 77, 78, the top gets softer. If you go for a lower value, so instead of 75, 74, 73, 72, your top will be stiffer. And the MCS is actually the other way around. If you take the MCS, which is the value of the stiffness of the central part of the mast, if you have 25 as a standard for the 460, if you go higher in number, so 26, 27, the MCS will get stiffer, so the feeling of the mast will be stiffer. If you go lower in the value of 25, so 24, 23, 22, the MCS will be lower, so the mast will feel overall softer. So I hope this makes it kind of clear what happens when your values of the top MCS and of the bottom are actually going up and down. Now you're getting more or less the idea, I hope. So in Point-7, we are actually developing the mast not thinking about flat top, constant curve. We're actually designing the mast according to the conditions the sails are going to be used in. So if we're thinking about strong wind, choppy water, smaller sails, we're trying to have a mast which is very comfortable. If we are thinking about light wind, big sails, flat water, sunny day, then we're thinking about having a more powerful mast for this bigger size to have more power, more drive, more acceleration. So on our bigger mast sizes, we're looking into having a mast which gives power. In the smaller mast sizes, we're trying to give a mast which is having more control. So I've put here an example now, just below here, a 490 against a 4 meter. So as you see, this is looking at the base. Our 4 meter has a base of 64. Our 490 has a base of 62, meaning that the base of the 490 is much stiffer compared to the one of the 400. Why? Because we want our 400 to be softer at the base, in order when you hit the chop, it's actually absorbing the hits on the chop, so it's becoming more comfortable. You're not getting the power and the reactivity on your hands and your body, which makes you move around. But on the 490, which is used mainly for sails from 8.5 up, we're looking to have a stiffer base, because stiffer base gives more profile, more drive, more reactivity, and therefore you have more power. That's regarding the base of the mast, according to two sizes. Then we jump directly to the top. As you see, the top of the 490 is 77, which is soft compared to a normal 75 as we showed here before. and the top of a 4 meter is actually stiffer than a 75. So we have, on a small mast we have a stiff top, and on the big mast we have a soft top. Why is this? Because in a light wind we want to have a soft top. Soft top makes our sail breathe more. So practically with less wind the sail is able to open and have the top of the mast working, breathing and pumping. And this gives also more acceleration, a light feeling in light wind, and this is very comfortable and nice to have. While in strong wind we're using a stiffer top, because you're hitting a lot of chop. So when you're sailing, the rig is moving a lot because you keep hitting the chop. So if you have a stiff base on the top, you would actually think, oh, if it's stiff, it's not moving, then no, if it doesn't move, it doesn't make your body move. It means that it stays fixed without moving. The base is soft, as we said before, so the base is moving, the top stays stable, and because it's stable on the top, your body doesn't get lifted. If you would have a soft top, the soft would be moving and you would lose the balance, something that you wouldn't have in a light wind because the conditions of the water are normally very easy. But in a strong wind, if you have a stiff top, it gives you a very good comfort. So what we're having on a 490, so on the big mast, we have a stiff base and a soft top. And when you subtract the 77, you take out 62 from 77, you actually have a 14. 14 means that it's higher than 12, meaning that it's a flex top. It's not 13, which is a flex top, it's 14. It's even more than a flex top. It's a bit more, it's kind of an important flex top. If you take a 400, you have a soft base, a stiff top, and the result is 10. It's less than 12. So it's less than it's not a constant curve, it's not a flex top really. What you have is in the end is a soft base with a stiff top. So it's, what would you call it? You would call it maybe a stiff top mast. That could be it. And so these are the results. And as you see, for each size of our mast, we are actually thinking how we want the mast to work in the conditions, in different conditions, because that's the starting point. So we want an easy, comfortable mast for small sizes and strong wind. We want a powerful, light mast for light wind sailing. So it's not about constant curve and flex top. It's about building something which works in the right conditions. So a lot of you guys are coming to us and saying, I would like to have the, for example, ACX 7.5 slalom no cam, which uses a 460. Your second question is like, I have a 100% mast. Will that fit the sail? As I said before, 100% means really nothing. IMCS 25 460 means also nothing. It's all about the curve. And it's very difficult for us to know your mast, what curves it has, because it doesn't say on the mast. There are some tables around in the world saying each mast what curves they have, but they're not up to date, and most of the time they're also wrong and measured with different systems, so it's hard to know the real truth about it. And just to give you an example, let's say that you're taking a 7.5 ACX, so which is a 460. Our 460 is 63 and 75, 63 base and 75 top. So let's say your one is a flex top. So flex top means that this value is softer, so it would be like 76 or 77. So what happens is that if you have a flex top, the top part of the mast is softer. So when you're actually putting the downhole in the sail, the top part of the mast will bend earlier than what we normally would pull our sail with a stiffer top. So when you're downholing the sail, you will see that the top starts falling off much earlier than what we want it to fall off at. So what happens is that when you don't put enough downhole, because the top is already opening because it's softer, then you will have more profile in the base and you will have no tension in the base, because if you pull even more to give the right tension to the base and the right profile, then what happens is that the top being softer will open even more, so you will have a very loose sail on the top. A sail which is too loose, which will create the sail to be unstable, because when it's too open, the sail doesn't find its right uniform fall of the leash, and therefore the sail will start feeling more unstable. Or what you do is that you don't downhole the sail, that you have the tension, the right tension at the base to have the right tension on the top. So it's opening nicely on the top, but then the base doesn't have the right tension, and therefore, without having the right tension below, the sail will feel very soft and unreactive. That's if you have a flex top mast. But let's say that you have a stiffer top. So instead of having a 75, you would have a 74 or 73. What happens is that you have to over downhole the sail compared to what we say to have the right opening of the top of the sail, and at the base you will have too much downhole, meaning that you will lose profile. Losing profile means that you lose power, you will lose control in strong winds, and therefore that's why it's not working. So it's very important that you have the right curve with for the right sail, because it's actually changing a lot the difference between the top part of the sail and the bottom part of the sail. I hope this was not too complicated. It's very much into detail. I understand that it can be difficult to maybe understand the first time you see this video, but it's just to let you know that it's very difficult to say what mast is compatible to what. There are a lot of different details into a mast, and therefore now you also know what's the difference between anyway a constant or flex top, knowing that these are not the only things which are making a mast compatible or not. And just think to try at least to have the right mast for the right sail. Sometimes it's more important to have a 60% with the right curve instead of having 100% with the wrong curve.